Tonight on the Black Channel. Oh, you didn't think they were done, did you? Absolutely not. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Channel, and I am the Black Authority, and you are listening live to the only historically black college and university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. Of course, you're welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, I just want to jump right off into it here. Okay, last night, we're discussing the Supreme Court decision that struck down affirmative action for colleges, which of course means they will eventually get around to striking it down everywhere. And is the intent of these things to understand? Is the intent of these things anything that even tangentially could do anything protecting black folk? But only in the areas where it could have some sort of positive effect for us. In the major areas, commerce and whatnot, they'll keep that in place because it's not benefiting black people, it's benefiting white women. So obviously there's a full court press, and now, bringing up the rear, you've got none other than the state of Michigan has stepped in here. Oh, to let you know is we're here to protect everyone except black folk. Not here to protect you. Every time you turn around now, when you hear somebody talking about a hate crime or hate law or whatever, it's for everybody except black folk. Nothing for you. Yeah, these things were originally put in place to protect you, and they've never protected you. You go to court citing these laws, and they tell you, oh, it doesn't apply to you. Every time we tell them that, by the way, hey, these folks are violating the law here, violating these statutes. No. Well, how do you figure that? We're white. We say so. Yeah, I mean, the law's in the books, but yeah, we're not protecting any of that. We're not holding up any of that. So that's what you run into here. I want to read here from the Daily Mail, and there's a bunch of other places here, and obviously, they have a bit of a sketchy history, but I want to read here from the Daily Mail because there's some things in particular I want you to see as we go down here. So just a few things in particular I want us to take a look at here. As you see from the headline here, Michigan residents could be charged with a felony, face up to 5 years in prison, and get a $10,000 fine for using the wrong pronouns under a unconstitutional new bill. The Michigan House has approved a hate speech bill, HB 4474, that would criminalize causing someone to feel threatened by words. The bill aims to replace the current Ethnic Intimidation Act and includes sexual orientation and gender identity or expression as protected classes. Offenders could face up to 5 years in prison for the felony offense. Some have argued that the legislation could infringe on free speech rights. Now, once again, you got to understand this would only apply where white people are concerned. If you're black and got an issue with somebody saying something that you don't like, that will just be your ass. You will not have standing. That'll just be curtains for you if you don't like it. Don't think that you're going to be black and go somewhere and start flexing this on anyone. Don't tell yourself that that's going to happen, because it isn't. You try that one, they're going to tell you and show you where to get off the bus at. So don't think for a moment that you're going to be able to get away with that. That's the first thing you need to remember. You will not be allowed to use that. But what I want to do here, before we get off in this part of the story, I want to go to the Ethnic Intimidation Act, 1989. I want to go into that for you for a moment because I want you to see what it actually said. Let me go ahead and zoom in here so you all can take a look at this. And this is Michigan's law that they just said that it basically amends that law. The Ethnic Intimidation Act. Now, listen to what this thing said. And by the way, you're looking at it right here. Take a look at what it said. The ethnic intimidation, a person is guilty of ethnic intimidation if that person maliciously and with specific intent to intimidate or harass another person because of that person's race, color, religion, gender, or national origin does any of the following. A, causes physical contact with another person. As you know, in New York, to violate the Asian hate crime statute, you don't even have to touch them. B, damages, destroys, or defaces any real or personal property of another person. C, threatens by word or act to do an act described in subdivision A or B if there is reasonable cause to believe that an act described in subdivision A or B will occur. Keep in mind this C, section C here. Keep that clause in mind. Remember that one. Ethnic intimidation is a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 2 years or by a fine of not more than $5,000 or both. So back then, when they thought that, well, this is supposed to do a little bit of a touch of something to help race, color, you mean black folk? Yeah, it's $5,000. Regardless of the existence or outcome of any criminal prosecution, a person who suffers injury to his or her person or damage to his or her property as a result of ethnic intimidation may bring a civil cause of action against the person who commits the offense to secure an injunction, actual damages, including damages for emotional distress or other appropriate relief. A plaintiff who prevails in a civil action brought pursuant to this section may recover both of the following: damages in the amount of 3 times the actual damages described in this subsection, or $2,000, whichever is greater. Reasonable attorney fees and costs. So that was the original law that was given there. That was the original one. So in the article here, it says Michigan House of Representatives has passed a hate speech bill known as HB 4474, which criminalizes causing someone to feel threatened by words, including the misusing of their pronouns, with the possibility of a hefty fine or even jail time. The bill introduces hate crime penalties for causing someone to, quote, feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened with sexual orientation and gender identity or expression included as protected classes. Offenders could face up to 5 years in prison for such a felony offense or a $10,000 fine. When it's time to talk about LGBT, all of a sudden the numbers go up. When it's black folk, the numbers don't move. Except if they find something they can target black people for. Oh, Bill Cosby, let's go after him. Michael Jackson, Cuba Gooding Jr. If they want to target black folk, all of a sudden there's no statute of limitations, there's no protection, there's no anything. The law is whatever they say it is that day. It is a part of a continued effort by Democrats in the state to advance a pro-LGBTQ agenda in their first months in power. So these are the Democrats. The proposed legislation aims to replace the existing Ethnic Intimidation Act, which you just heard, and extends protection against intimidation. Of course, right here, nothing for black folk, don't worry about that. Critics argue that the bill poses a threat to First Amendment rights and lacks clarity in defining harassment, leaving it open to subjective interpretation. That's the point. The bill reads as follows. Intimidate means a willful course of conduct involving repeated or continuing harassment or of another individual that would cause a reasonable individual to feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened. And that actually causes the victim to feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened. Please remember, I can't name a single instance of a black person being able to invoke the Michigan Ethnic Intimidation Act. I can't think of that. I can't think of a time that a black person in the state of Michigan has been able to invoke that act and actually get any meaningful redress. I can't remember it. So to my folks up there in Detroit, Lansing, wherever, have any black folk ever been able to use this? Because I can't remember any black people in the state of Michigan. I've never heard it invoked before now. When have black people been able to use this? You can't tell me it hasn't been brought up in court. Every attorney in the world brings up every single law in court. So what I'm saying, well, why is it that this never came up before? Why is it we never heard this before with everything that happens to black folk all over the place? Why is it we never heard of this before? In Benton Harbor. Why is it we've never heard of it before? Asking for a friend. It says here, if passed, penalties would be based on how the supposed victim and court, quote, feel about a particular matter. What constitutes as being deemed intimidation and harassment would be up to the interpretation of the listener and a local prosecutor. Critics argue that the legislation could infringe on free speech rights and undermine the principles of due process. Michigan Democrats have made it a priority to further protect LGBTQ plus people since they took control of all levels of state government this year. This is Roland Martin, by the way. This is Roland Martin. Vote Democrat down ballot. Remember those jackasses? By the way, this is Roland Martin's political strategy here. Nothing for black folk. Nothing for black people at all, and they're going back and bastardizing and mutating the laws that were supposed to at least do something for us and have never even been used for us, and using it for everyone else except for us. This is what I touched on here yesterday about the Supreme Court decision for affirmative action. What was their basis? The 14th Amendment. The whole purpose of affirmative action was because the federal government and the states were not protecting our Fourth Amendment rights. When you take a look at our income, when you take a look at our mortality levels, when you take a look at all those things, our 14th Amendment rights are not being protected. They're not being honored under the Constitution. That's why you had to have further acts every time you turn around. If the Constitution of the United States were actually being followed where black people are concerned, we wouldn't need a Civil Rights Act of 65, 69, and everybody else. You wouldn't need a Voting Rights Act. You wouldn't need all of these other continuous laws being passed if the Constitution itself were actually being followed and obeyed. We wouldn't need any further laws. You're right. The Constitution does give us the rights. The problem is you only have the rights that you can enforce. It's not a right and it's not a law if it's not enforced. Prohibition taught you that. So if the Constitution were actually being followed, no, we wouldn't need all these other laws. You wouldn't need every state to go through here. We wouldn't need hate crime statutes that they're only using to prosecute against black folk, by the way, which is why we got to go back and get another law to stop them from targeting us with the first laws that they made. The first laws that were supposed to be made to protect us, they're protecting everybody else now and targeting us. So now we got to go because we had to get laws made because you weren't honoring the Constitution. Now we got to get another set of laws made to stop you from targeting us under the laws that were made when you were not honoring the Constitution. It turns into that. That's where we are now. So it's turned into a cruel joke on their part. But it's not a joke when it's targeting you for death. In March, lawmakers codified LGBTQ plus protections into the state's civil rights law, permanently outlawing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity in the state. This new hate speech bill passed in the Democratic-controlled House 59-50 and will now move to the Michigan State Senate, also Democrat-controlled, for further consideration. If approved, it would expected, okay, somebody needs to proofread this. If approved, it is expected to be signed into law by the Democratic State Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Didn't some folks try to kidnap her a little while ago? Okay, I see that she's back in rare form. Looking like Caitlyn Jenner. Distinguished Professor Emeritus William Wagner, an expert in constitutional law and former federal judge, warns that the legislation could be used to silence conservative viewpoints and would oppose the due process required by the Constitution. Isn't it amazing how all these folks invoke the Constitution when they're white? Now, when you're black, the only thing you get told is the Constitution does not protect you. You go to court and you get told the Constitution doesn't protect you. White folks show up and the Constitution protects every damn thing. It protects them coming and going. It protects who agrees and who disagrees. If I'm telling the truth here tonight, y'all give me the thumbs up in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. It's over 3,000 people in here listening live. If I'm telling the truth, give me the thumbs up emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. If you don't like it, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But I wanted to talk to you all tonight because everybody's watching affirmative action. I'm watching all these other things going on. They go on to say here that, make no mistake about it, those advocating for this legislation will wield those policies as a weapon capable of destroying conservative expression or viewpoints grounded in the sacred, Wagner told the Daily Wire. So the right-wingers are out here talking and whatnot, but you got to understand these laws have never been used to protect black people. That means that the laws will be used to be weaponized against black people. That's what that means. White folk will stay protected. These laws will be used and weaponized against black people. That's what will occur there. This is the cruel joke, the cruel sense of humor of white supremacy. Oh, don't worry, this will help you out. And it turns in that. It turns in that. As you can see here, they have some of the screenshots of what they were referring to here. Some of the relevant parts here are, if any of the following conditions apply, a person who violates subsection 1 is guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 5 years or a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. So now we're up to 5 years and $10,000. When you thought it was black folk, well, it's 2 years, $5,000 or both. And that's it. What does the violations have to be? A, the violation results in bodily injury or severe mental anguish. Well, so you see how they're following the original law here and how they're improving on it. I say improving advisedly. We went from causes physical contact with another person to results in bodily injury or severe mental anguish. Now, you do understand what that means, right? What that means is that if a Jeffrey Epstein type in Michigan wants to sit up here and shake their drawers in front of your children, you tell them to get out from in front of your kids like that, then they will tell you that they were intimidated and suffered severe mental and emotional anguish. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Now, if you're black, don't expect any of this to help you. Do not expect to be able to cite this or use this at all if you are black. This does not apply to you. You try this, it doesn't apply. So don't even think about it. You go for this, it doesn't apply. Section B, the person has one or more prior convictions for violating subsection 1. A victim of the violation of subsection 1 is less than 18 years of age. A victim of the violation of subsection 1 is less than 18 years of age. So this is talking about if the kids want to do, if the young folk that they can weaponize or use. Now your black children will not be protected. Somebody doing this to your black children will be overlooked by the prosecutors. Prosecutors will not enforce this. If a white woman attacks your black children, they will not be protected by this. Don't expect your kids to get protected. The person commits the violation of subsection 1 in concert with one or more other individuals. The person is in possession of a firearm during the commission of the violation of subsection 1. Next, threatens by word or act to do any of the actions described under subdivisions A through D. 2. The actual or perceived characteristics of another individual referenced under subsection 1 include all of the following. Now you notice they're putting that part in yellow to highlight it because that's the part there about saying something that they don't like. That's the part that they were saying is that's the part you're violating. The actual or perceived characteristics of another individual referenced under subsection 1 include all of the following. This is where we start, where we amend from the original law here. We amend it from just being on the basis of race, color, religion, gender, national origin. Now this is where they amend it and tell you that these are the protected classes now, even though they don't protect us. Race or color. So you saw they lumped us together. Race or color. Religion. Sex. Sexual orientation. Gender identity or expression. So you see we've removed gender. Do you see what they did here in Michigan? They've removed gender and replaced it with gender identity. So if some white man with a long beard walks into the bathroom right behind your 6-year-old black daughter and says, "I'm a girl too. I'm female too." No, that's seriously what this means. If a 50-year-old white male with a beard walks into the bathroom behind your 6-year-old daughter and claims that he identifies as female, and if you say something about it, then he can claim that, oh, he felt intimidated. No, I felt severe mental anguish. So this is where they smuggled this in and introduced this. Physical or mental disability. Let me go ahead and make this point right quick. Remember Jordan Neely was murdered by Daniel Penny here, and understand something. Nobody was talking about mental anguish. The prosecutors were, oh, we don't know about that. About you taking action against somebody because you felt they were a threat. The prosecutors all but defended it and are still defending it. But they're going to tell you, oh, you better watch what you say to these folk over here. Because if they feel threatened, well, we'll do something about you. Physical or mental disability. Physical or mental disability. Do you understand what that means? I mean, they're really missing the boat over there in right-wing alt-right media. Do you see these other things they added to it? They added originally here before, it was only 5 things. race, color, religion, gender, national origin. Now look at how far they've expanded that. And with three of them, three on here for LGBT, only one for black folk. No mention of the descendants of slaves, only one for black people. That's it. For LGBT, this is what they did. This is Roland Martin's handiwork. This is Roland Martin's advice in action. If you needed another reason to tell him choke down a Subway sandwich and shut the hell up, this right here, take a look at that. His Democrats that he told you, y'all need to vote for the Democrats. Don't let them Republicans get you. This is Roland Martin's advice. And take a look at what they did. Nothing for black folk, nothing to deal with systemic racism, nothing for reparations. Take a look at what they did. Not one, not two, three of them in here. And it didn't take them forever to get around to this now, did it? It didn't take them weeks and months or years to get around to this. Didn't have to have a committee, commission, or anything else. It's not stuck in committee. As soon as they got in there, they jumped into it quick, fast, and in a hurry. So you went from 5 protected classes here before what, 10 on here now? 9 on here? 9 or 10. Yeah, because they got some, this, I got to get down here and read this. They name race or color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, physical or mental disability, age, ethnicity, national origin, association or affiliation with an individual or group of individuals in whole or in part based on a characteristic described under subdivisions A through I. Did you get that? Association or affiliation with an individual or group of individuals in whole or in part based on a characteristic described under subdivisions. So in other words, any gay pride organization, they're protecting associations, affiliations, a group of individuals. Well, that means that can mean your civic organizations and groups too, by the way. Never had these protections for black folk. The NAACP ain't never seen that. CORE's never seen that. So you've never seen that before. So they're making sure they dot all their I's and cross all their T's. Next on here, you can see it says, as used in this section, A, gender identity or expression means having or being perceived as having a gender-related self-identity or expression, whether or not associated with an individual's assigned sex at birth. Intimidate or harass means a willful course of action involving repeated or continuing harassment of another individual that could cause a reasonable individual to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, threatened, harassed, or molested, and that actually causes the victim to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, threatened, harassed, or molested. You notice this language was never here before. When it was being invoked originally about black folk, the language was real sparse. Real sparse, real plain, real threadbare. With these other folks here, oh, they got chapter and verse on it. That's not all. Because when you take a look at the real documents and stuff, here it is over here. By the way, it goes on a bit longer over here. It goes on a bit longer. When you take a look at the actual text of it here, I'm just giving you the Cliff Notes version. We're just giving you the Cliff Notes version. When you take a look at the actual text of it, oh no. It goes on a lot longer here. Yeah, they had time to think this over. I'll read that to you here really briefly. The people of the state of Michigan didn't ask for this. Enact Section 147B, a person is guilty of, they struck out ethnic intimidation, a hate crime, if that person maliciously and with the specific intent to intimidate or harass another person because of that person's race. So you notice where they're striking out the language of the original penal code here. You notice they're striking that out. Well, I was telling you here before, they're striking that part out and replacing it. You notice what they're doing here. You notice they're striking it out from here, I think line 3, and then saying, okay, we going from here. So instead of saying that a person is guilty of ethnic intimidation, it is now a person is guilty of a hate crime if that person maliciously and intentionally does any of the following to an individual based in whole or in part on an actual or perceived characteristic of that individual listed under subsection 2, regardless of the existence of any other motivating factors. This is subsection 2 down here. These are the criterion under subsection 2. You haven't gotten to it yet, but you get the idea. Regardless of the existence of any other motivating factors, uses force or violence on another individual, causes bodily harm to another individual, intimidates another individual, damages, destroys, or defaces any real, personal, digital, or online property of another individual without the consent of that individual. Now you get here, threatens by word or act to do any of the actions described under subdivisions A to D. So if you threaten to do these things. Number 2, the actual or perceived characteristics of another individual referenced under subsection 1 include all the following. So this is when they say, who are the individuals protected? We covered that already. Now they expand it to groups. Except as provided in subsection 4, a person who violates subsection 1 is guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 2 years or by a fine of not more than $5,000 or both. If any of the following conditions apply, a person who violates subsection 1 is guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 5 years or a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. A, the violation results in bodily harm. B, the person has one or more prior convictions for violating subsection 1. C, a victim of the violation of subsection 1 is less than 18 years old, and the offender is at least 19 years of age. The person commits the violation of subsection 1 in concert with one or more individuals. And E, the person is in possession of a firearm during the commission of the violation of subsection 1. Now, listen to this next part. If the prosecuting attorney intends to seek an enhanced sentence based upon the defendant having one or more prior convictions under subsection 4B, the prosecuting attorney shall include on the complaint an information statement listing the prior conviction or convictions. The existence of the defendant's prior conviction or convictions must be determined by the court without a jury, at sentencing, or at a separate hearing for that purpose before sentencing. Now, did you get this? Did you all understand what you just read there as I said that to you? Sometimes language can be tricky, but did you get this? If the prosecuting attorney intends to seek enhanced sentence, in other words, a hate crime enhancement, based upon the defendant having one or more prior convictions under subsection 4B, now you notice they said the word if he intends. They don't require it. Did you get that? They don't require it. It's up to the prosecutor's discretion. As I said from the very beginning, you will not be protected by any of this because it is up to the prosecutor's discretion. There isn't a law that spells out and says these are the terms and that they're required, that it's mandatory. You know, like they do black folk about drugs. The drugs that black folk tend to disproportionately use, how they target black folk with that and say mandatory minimum sentencing. They take it all out of the prosecutors and judges' hands, and this is what it's going to be. And yet here, they're clearly telling you, well, this is up to the prosecutor's discretion. It's if he intends to do so. So that's who intends to do it. And they tell you the prosecuting attorney shall include on the complaint, if he wants to do a hate crime enhancement on the defendant for having one or more prior convictions, the prosecuting attorney shall include on the complaint and information in the statement listing the prior conviction or convictions. The existence of the defendant's prior conviction or convictions must be determined by the court without a jury at sentencing or at a separate hearing for that purpose before sentencing. So what they're saying is it's between the prosecutor and the judge. They're saying it's between the prosecutor and the judge. The existence of the defendant's prior conviction or convictions must be determined by the court without a jury at sentencing or at a separate hearing for that purpose before sentencing. The existence of a prior conviction may be established by any evidence relevant for that purpose, including, but not limited to. Now, Jason, why are you going to all this work to emphasize this part of what they're saying? Because when you start, this is the part that gets black folk, is when you give the prosecutors powers of discretion, things that can be shown outside of a jury. So we've gotten all the way to sentencing, and they're saying, well, this isn't something to consider for the jury to consider. And then the existence of a prior conviction may be established by any evidence relevant for that purpose, relevant, including but not limited to. So this is for your prior convictions, what they can use as evidence: a copy of the judgment of conviction, a transcript of a prior trial, plea taking, or sentencing, information contained in a pre-sentence report. Now, what does that mean? Information contained in a pre-sentence report. D, the defendant's statement. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can, will, and even if you didn't say it, we'll make it up and it'll be used against you. Did you get that? A copy of the judgment of conviction of your prior conviction, a transcript of a prior trial, plea taking, or sentencing, information contained in a pre-sentence report, the defendant's statement. Did you get that? 6, in lieu of or in addition to the penalties described in subsection 3, the court may, if the defendant consents, impose an alternative sentence described under this subsection. In determining the suitability of an alternative sentence described in this subsection, the court shall consider the criminal history of the offender. The court shall consider the criminal history of the offender. That doesn't mean they must. That doesn't mean they must. This is what I'm talking about, the loopholes for white offenders. The loopholes for white folk. That's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. It'll be up to the prosecutor's discretion what he uses, without a jury when it's used. It's just the prosecutor and the judge. So even if you and your folks are sitting there with Ben Crump talking about these people's history of violating the law, it'll just be the prosecutor and the judge, is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to explain this to you so you see what the language really says and what it's really telling you that they're able to do or not, or leave out. The fellow with the beard who followed your daughter into the bathroom In determining the suitability of an alternative sentence described under this subsection, the court shall consider the criminal history of the offender, the impact of the offense on the victim and wider community, the availability of the alternative sentence, and the nature of the violation. An alternative sentence may, if the entity chosen for community service is amenable, include an order requiring the offender to complete a period of community service intended to enhance the offender's understanding of the impact of the offense upon the victim and wider community. So in other words, this section right here is the one that white folk gonna get. If they get caught on video doing something egregious, this part right here, section 6, this is where we're gonna send the white folk. This is where the prosecutor and the judge have discretions. This is where they're going to steer them over to. You get to go up the penitentiary highway. These other folk get off over here on the counseling off-ramp. Yeah, we don't need to make a felony for you. We get to, well, even if you have a history of this kind of thing, even if you have a prior history, there is a mechanism in here that allows them to let the white folk off the hook, and they're okay for calling you nigga all day, spray painting your house, firebombing your house. This allows them to get let off all day. You try it, you do something, or if you're even accused, now it's, Section 6, yeah, we got discretion and we ain't gonna be very damn discreet. No alternative sentence for you. The court may, if the defendant consents, reduce any penalty imposed under subsection 4 by not more than 20% and impose an alternative sentence described under this subsection. In determining the suitability of an alternative sentence described under the subsection, the court shall consider the criminal history of the offender, the impact of the offense on the victim and the wider community, the availability of the alternative sentence, and the nature of the violation. Not very creative people making this thing up, but okay. An alternative sentence may, if the entity chosen for the community service is amenable. So you read that before. And you can see what they're saying here. Now they have this part down here, regardless, and you saw this up here before, regardless of the existence or outcome of any criminal prosecution, a person who suffers injury to his or her person or damage to his or her property as a result of ethnic intimidation may bring a civil cause. And then it says down here, your damages can be in the amount of 3 times the actual damages described in this subsection or $2,000, whichever is greater. What they say now is, regardless of the existence or outcome of any criminal prosecution, they took out the word person. So do you see how insane they gotten in Michigan? This isn't California. This isn't New York. This is Michigan. So they're saying it's not a person, it's an individual. This is for the abortion. This is so they can abort the black babies. This is denying personhood. And black folks should be very, very cognizant when you're reading legal documents that overtly deny personhood. Please remember, the whole basis of denying our rights as human beings under the Constitution originally was that we were not full persons. So when you have a document that seeks to deny personhood, just understand you're in the crosshairs. An individual who suffers bodily injury, they struck out to his or her person, or damage to struck out his or her, the individual's property. I mean, you've got a radical, rabid LGBT government up there. Michigan right now has an LGBT radical government. They are a militant LGBT government. Just understand that. They've got a militant LGBT government. So an individual who suffers bodily injury or damage to the individual's property as a result of a hate crime may bring a civil cause of action against the person who commits the offense to secure an injunction, actual damages, including damages for emotional distress or other appropriate relief. A plaintiff who prevails in a civil action brought under this section may recover both of the following: damages in the amount of 3 times the actual damages described in this subsection, or they struck out $2,000 and raised it to $25,000, whichever is greater. This will be used by white folk. They'll tell black people you have no standing. If you're black and you attempt to use this because you've been racially harassed, racially harmed, racially attacked, they will tell you that it's not severe enough, there is no standing, and we've determined an alternative sentence. For the white supremacist offenders, there will be an alternative sentence for them, not for you. So you read the rest of this before when they cap it off here. By the way, take a look at how they capped it off. As used in this section, I mean, they put a whole different section down here to end it for just the LGBT. Should I say the white LGBT? Just for them. The whole tail end of this is just to make sure that you understand that this law is being amended specifically for LGBT. Specifically for them. So we read this before about what it means, gender identity or expression means, and intimidate means. So just understand that. This is what they're doing. Nothing for black people now. You vote Democrat and they sit up here and tell you we can't do anything specifically for you. Well, now you have a bill that is specifically respecting and giving preferential treatment to a sexual identity. Nobody's saying you got to treat everybody equal here. They're giving open, blatant preferential treatment. So y'all need to start asking some questions about your politicians and what they do behind closed doors. There's a whole lot more Andrew Gillums out there than folks are giving credit for. Y'all better believe there's a whole lot more Andrew Gillums out there than they're giving credit for being. Whole lot more. So what I'm doing is I'm showing you all here, as I said last night, from the national level to the state level to the local level. Everywhere you go, laws that were allegedly intended to be created to help black folk down the line, they're striking them down and knocking them over. With Bowling Ball Martin telling you we need to vote for these folk. These are the Democrats who did this. These are your Democrats in Michigan. Roland says vote Big D. Vote Little D. This is what they're putting up there now. So just understand when somebody sits up here and tells you what we need to do, as far as voting Democrat or voting anything for that matter, just go ahead and check and see what they're doing line by line, down the line, exactly what I told you it would be. Exactly what I told you it would be. And once again, I have to say, this is good. It is. It's good because the only way you're going to keep black folk vigilant is if the white supremacists and the deviants stay on the warpath. As long as they stay on the attack, black folk will remain vigilant. If they start getting quiet, black folk gonna get up and walk off the field and start playing with their cell phones and chasing tennis shoes. As long as the white supremacists out here are keeping on the pressure, as long as they're continuing to apply the pressure, as long as they're continuing to invade your daily life, then they cannot be ignored. And that's the only upside to this is, well, they can't be ignored. That's it. For those of us who have always been on a war footing, this is our element. We've always been in the fires. We've always been dealing with this. For those of us who've been out here in the elements. These other folk have to be kicked in the rear all the time. Folks, stuff like this got to happen to keep them kicked in the ass. They're going to get up and go home. They're going to just look for an excuse to go back to partying and bull jiving. So no, you can't allow the pressure to go off. We're going to have to make progress, but at the same time, it's going to have to be a careful balance, because as soon as folk feel like it's over, they're just waiting for an excuse to go back and get back to what they were doing before. No matter how pointless, no matter how banal. So from California to New York to Michigan, this is no longer a California, New York issue, everyone. You're seeing this pop up everywhere. North Carolina. You're seeing this pop up in various places over and over again. With folk telling you need to vote for this. I want you all to understand something. They want to turn, and it's no surprise that it's in Michigan, where you've got one of the blackest cities in America, one of the most historic cities in America and blackest cities in America. And they want to create these kind of laws that will allow them to target your black children. They want these kind of laws to target your black children so that they can turn the entire society into one big brothel plantation where targeting your kids is fair game. Where you don't have the right to protect your children from these deviants. And they're going to target the black children because that is what they've always done. I say again, they're going to target the black children because that is what they have always done. From Ed Buck to Jeffrey Dahmer to Jerry Sandusky. There's a reason you can name off those names like that. When they put these things in place, it will be for the purposes of protecting them, targeting your black children. Targeting your black sons, your black daughters, your black nieces, your black nephews. They will not go after the white kids. They're not the selected lambs to the slaughter. They're not the selected targets. Our children are. Our children. Recognize how serious that is. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. As always, you are welcome to join us. We're going to go ahead and take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, we will take your phone calls and more. Before I do, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat, Venmo. Big shout out here to everybody here in the Super Chat, cult-like personalities, Shawnee Blake, Angel, everybody else here. Thank you very much for your support. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, your phone calls and more. This is the Black Channel.
Are you ready to take the next step in your career or business? With Higher Life Recruiting and Consulting, you can get the help you need to reach your goals. Our experiences span multiple industries, giving us the ability to source top talent across various fields. We specialize in STEM and high-tech industries, but we are equally adept at recruiting and professional services. Our services include career consulting, resume writing, LinkedIn consulting, interviewing, lead generation, sourcing, and talent mapping. Follow us on Instagram at Get Higher With Us.
Having computer problems? Is your PC or Mac running slow? Need help building a gaming PC? Having problems with your Apple or Android device? Call or text Fix Too Fast. We can fix common and uncommon computer software issues remotely, anywhere, nationwide, from the comfort of your home or business. Are you having hardware issues with your PC or Mac? Ship it to us and we will ship it back fixed. Call 1-877-412-9890 or text 513-440-1646 to speak to a technician. Please visit our website at www.fixtoofast.net.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spiritOf1811publishing.com and show your love.
More Threads, a brand owned by a descendant of Black American freedmen, was created to uniquely address Black American history and contributions that have been intentionally hidden and suppressed. Use their apparel and more to learn and share the Black American history of Black inventions, heroes, towns, Black business districts, and more. Sign up and support not only a Black-owned business, but a movement at www.morethread.co.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' natural body butter with skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority, and we are opening up the telephone lines. The number is 646-787-1933. That is 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. And we are talking about how they are expanding protections for everyone out there. All of a sudden, it's about expanding protections for everyone except black people. The folks who need it most and have received nothing. So it's letting you know this is a conscious effort. This is a conscious effort being pressed against us on all sides. Everyone, everywhere. It is, the rules now are all against black. It's everyone against black people is what it is. That's the game they're playing now. That's the game they're playing now. Let's go ahead and open up the phone lines. Let me get caller from area code 646. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
It's Zonan calling out of Brooklyn.
Oh, now the Brooklyn, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. So I'm not even sure if you know, but the Jewish community in Brooklyn has so much power that they even have their own auxiliary of the NYPD. And I find it hard to understand why black people in America don't have something like that. I mean, if there's any ethnic group or racial group in America who would qualify for something like an auxiliary of the NYPD or any other police force, it would definitely be black people. And I just think it speaks to this entire narrative that, you know, that black people just don't have any protections. You know, the Asians, they get something. You know, Hispanic migrants, they're getting their piece of the pie, and we're just left to hang dry. You know,
you make a very good point. And I've talked about the Jewish auxiliary up there, the Hasidic auxiliary up there before. So when folks were talking about, you know, there was a spike in hate crimes against Jewish people, I mean, the folks who showed up were Jewish cops. I mean, with their beards and yarmulkes and everything else. So definitely, I've talked about that before. But you make a very good point. Here's the thing: in New York City, that wouldn't be allowed. The black cops tried to get together and do that, and that's not really going to be what they want. But there's also another element of it, which is so many of a lot of the black cops up there and whatnot are looking to be in different areas. They're looking to hang out on the Dominican side of town for various and sundry reasons. But you make a very good point. Yeah, I mean, we should have that. But the New York Police Department has spent its life targeting and decimating black folk. There's the real thing about it. So ironically enough, you're correct about that. Yeah, we should be the first in line. We're the only ones who wouldn't have one. Thank you very much for giving us a call. But the other thing is, you know, like I say, is they've targeted our communities. Up there in New York, they targeted us for gentrification. Over there off of Ocean, over there in Brooklyn, yeah, the Jewish community buys up all the houses over there, and they won't sell to anyone who's not Jewish. They bought up all, I've seen it for myself. Y'all know I've been up and down there, up and down those letter streets. They bought up all of those. They bought them up. I've seen it with my own eyes. They bought up all the houses. They buy it. Anytime a house comes up for sale, they'll pay millions for it. And once they buy it, they will only sell it to another Jewish person. Now, that's a violation of the law. That is a violation of housing law. But they are doing it in New York all day, every day. So you see, the hate crime statutes do not protect you when you're black. The hate crime statutes, the law doesn't protect you when you're black. So these other folks are allowed to be safe from gentrification. They're protected from it. We're the only ones who are actively targeted and given no rights. Keep that in mind. Caller from area code 213. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Wayne, sir. I want to say thank you very much for what you're doing for the community. One of the things that I'm kind of thinking about, I don't know if you agree with it. I notice sometimes that we have a lot of, intelligent people out there that can be able to reach out to these particular politicians, these bootlicks, and maybe even go by their houses with some of our power tools to be able to let them know that we're here to help you, maybe change your decision or the way that you're looking at it. I think personally, myself, that is one of the ways that we can be able to, to remedy this particular situation. I would say also, too, I look forward to hearing you all the time, every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And I just want you and other ones like yourself that are out there that is letting us know what we need to do to protect ourselves. This white supremacy movement is not stopping. It's all around us in every bit of
Well, I'll
society.
tell you the first thing that we would need to do. The first thing that we would need to do is not say anything even remotely close to what you're saying over open air. That would be the first thing you would not need to do, because we are monitored. So if you're going to move militantly and strategically, you have to recognize first and foremost that you are monitored. So the first thing I would say is you would not say anything like that over the air. Sounds real oppish, sounds real agentish. So to anybody who asks me what I think of it and whatnot, you don't call into a program saying things like that. You don't call into a program and say things like that. Folks out here got to understand, as black people here, we got to talk to each other. You don't talk. My job is to make sure that I broadcast what's going on here, and then you all talk to each other at home. That's the whole point of it. These other folks don't do stuff like that. You don't know what they're thinking. They don't say anything. Joe Rogan signs on. He doesn't even take calls. He signs on. He signs off. So the first thing I'm going to tell you all here is y'all need to make sure don't sound agentish or don't sound oppish. Don't do that. Caller from area code 469. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Thomas calling from Dallas, Texas.
Thomas from Dallas. What's on your mind?
Yeah, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to say nothing like that. I agree with you on that one. Yeah, because the laws in this country, man, are always going to be against us. We fighting a battle that, I mean, but what we got to do, we got to keep fighting, and thank God for the new black media, what you're doing and what other people are doing in the new black media, because we wouldn't hear about this stuff if it wasn't for you. It wasn't for other people, man. This is the fight that we're going to have to keep fighting and never give up, because our children and our grandchildren depend on us to keep fighting the battle until the end. So thank you, Jason, for what you do every day. I mean, you bring, I mean, every time I watch you, you bring the news that we don't hear on the majors on television. So yeah, keep doing what you do, man. Be one.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Please do give us a call again. And certainly, like I say, that's the purpose of what we do. You're not going to get this with Bowling Ball Martin. He's working for the enemy. You're not going to get this from Michael Eric Dyson. He's trying to get a check and a job from the very folk we're talking about targeting us. That's the whole reason you have a new black media, is so that we can discuss this and the ramifications of it, because there's one aspect where you're like, okay, you can see the part there that says they want to criminalize or they want to prosecute you for freedom of speech. But what I'm telling you is take a look at the other side of it, because these laws it's not about whether or not you say something. It's about how these laws are used against black people. Because allegedly black folk are listed in there, and yet I have yet to hear of a single black person who's been able to file a lawsuit to go to court and invoke a hate crime or ethnic intimidation. Because if the courts were operating properly, we would have cases like that happening all the time. And you would have judgments levied all the time. But you don't. And that's not accidental. That's deliberate. Every time you all turn around here, every law that's made, it lists us in there. It specifically says we're supposed to be protected. 14th Amendment specifically supposed to protect us. And now the Supreme Court has ruled, yeah, we are taking your rights. We're removing protections based on the 14th Amendment. But wait, hold on. I thought the 14th Amendment was made after the 13th Amendment to specifically protect the descendants of the slaves against racial injustice and racial prosecution and racial persecution. Yeah, well, we say, because we're white, including Clarence Thomas, and we say so, we say that the 14th Amendment takes protections from you. It doesn't give you any protections. It removes them. Now, that's the type of dystopian, Nazistic, militarized, white supremacist society that you live in. We're beyond Orwellian proportions. We're beyond Orwellian proportions. Caller from area code 773. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Big Coach Chief in the place to be, calling for the south side of Chicago.
All right, Big Coach Chief, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I want to say this. I think that, they use the fact that the N word is so common. They use that like as an excuse to not give us any, assistance. Like, hey, you call yourselves niggas all day. Excuse my language, but you know what I'm saying? I think that they might try to play off that too. I wish it could stop, but I'll land my plane.
Here's the thing, brother. They don't need that. They've never invoked that. They don't need it because they've been operating like this ever since before chattel slavery. So it's not like it's gone down. Turn off your speakers, people. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Shout out to my man Tommy Felix in the super chat. Says support B1 Media, support the B1 change. That's what we're doing. Portland, Oregon, stand up. Thank you very much for your support tonight, brother. We appreciate that. And let me be very, very clear. I don't tell you all these things because I want to frighten you. I don't tell you all these things because I want to scare you. I tell you these things because I want to inform you of where it's like this is a war zone, and I'm informing you of how these people are moving on the ground. I'm informing you of what they're doing on the ground. I'm informing you of who it is who's doing it and why it's occurring the way it is so that you can make the proper counter moves. Now that you understand this, when somebody sits up here and tells you that you need to go vote Democrat, vote blue no matter who, while they're trying to sit up here and scare you about Donald Trump, you need to be scared of these Democrats over here while you're at it. While they're telling you, they try to sit up here and scare you and frighten you about everybody else and don't even talk about this part. But it kind of makes you wonder why, doesn't it? Now, y'all know Roland Martin's big bologna cheese sandwich eating ass tunes into my program. It's one of his guilty pleasures, because overeating is not a guilty pleasure for him anymore. It's just guilt. Y'all got to understand something. I'm wondering a question here tonight. Jason, are you about to go there with it? Oh, you damn right I'm about to go there with it. I got a question for you all tonight. Because you got to understand that obviously they have seen what we've seen. They've obviously seen what we've seen, and yet Loaf of Light Bread Martin ain't said nothing. Hadn't said anything. Now he sees the same thing that we say, and yet he hasn't said a word. Now how can that be that he's seen all this and he ain't said anything? Will somebody tell me why this chitlin built nigga ain't said nothing? When we're talking about folks targeting the children, is it because he doesn't have a problem with it, I wonder? Just rolling just the silence here. You see the same thing we see, and yet you ain't said a word. How can it be all these years and you ain't said a word? I think the only reasonable conclusion that a person can come to when you've witnessed this for all these years and yet you stomp them harder than ever is that either you agree with what they're saying or you are so desperate for a paycheck from them that you know that this is something you better not talk about. I said it. What am I saying? I'm saying that I'm led to only two conclusions that I can see. The only two conclusions I can come to is either that Roland agrees with this. Either he agrees with it. That he's been hanging out with the Democrats so long that at this point right now, he's like, hey, boss. Y'all got it? Or because he is just so slavishly desperate for a paycheck from anybody, he'll go along in complicit silence with anything. Or it could be both. Possibly both. Possibly both. There's a possibility for that too. That it could be. Let me get caller from area code 828. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Television playing. Okay, he is loading up on the meat on the dock. So he is hard to work out there. Where's your old dead black media? Anybody found them? Where's your old dead black media? Where are they out there? Shouldn't be this damn hard to find them for something like this. And we got issue after issue. Where are they out there? I'm bringing it up to you because it's not a joke and it's not a game. When they're out here targeting the kids, that's not a joke. They're serious about that. And the folks who are sitting around in silence, not saying anything, or folks on The View, every time something like this comes up where they start targeting the children, Whoopi Goldberg and Sonny Hostin, all of a sudden either get real quiet or get real complicit. There's a reason that folks tuned out from them and tuned in to the Black Channel. Folks got real complicit over there. Real complicit. And they don't speak for us. Roland Martin doesn't speak for the rank and file. Sonny Hostin and Whoopi Goldberg don't speak for the rank and file. The Breakfast Club doesn't speak for the rank and file. They don't speak for the man and the woman on the street. They don't speak for them. MSNBC doesn't speak for us. ABC doesn't speak for us. What you hear here, this is what speaks for the people. And now they've reached a devastating point where fewer and fewer people are afraid to speak on this and to talk on this. Fewer and fewer people are afraid to do that. These other folks had their opportunity for decades to speak up in our interests and never said a word, and aren't saying a word now except to wag their finger and say, you know, if you was really smart, you'd vote more Democrat more often. But they don't have any influence anymore. And you all better believe the old black media is scared to death. 2024 has them terrified. They are terrified. I was looking at something here the other day. The Daily Caller, I think it was. They got a video on YouTube with Florida governor, right-wing, alt-right, white supremacist Ron DeSantis walking around California, walking around San Francisco, talking about how San Francisco is so run down now, is overrun with homeless and crime, and how the Democrats have run the whole city down, and this is the result of leftist policies. Ron DeSantis walking the streets of California like he's Tekashi 6ix9ine. Now I gotta tell you, honestly, Ron DeSantis doesn't think he's going to win California, but that's not the reason for him going there. The reason for him going there was to show that he's on the ground. And I got to tell you, in all honesty, when they sat down with him later, Ron DeSantis must have hired some public relations people and some coaches. He must have hired them because, boy, I'm telling you, you go listen to that damn thing. Why, he sounded like the most civil individual you could name. Ron DeSantis sounded as civil as you could imagine. He sounded as even-handed as you could imagine. He didn't sound like Trump light at all. Because I was wondering why it was that he started so early. Because I thought this was stupid to begin with. I had wondered why he started so early, and now I'm like, oh, there it is. You've gotten with some spin meisters. You've gotten with some spin specialists. And they've told you need to start changing your delivery and changing your demeanor and changing the way that you speak and changing the way that you comport yourself and changing the way you act. That you need to stop trying to be Trump light. That if you are going to end up running against Trump, you don't need to be the more radical version of Trump. You need to be the more reasonable version of Trump. So I said, oh, there it is. There it is. But he understands that he's going to need time. He's going to need time to cultivate this image. He's going to need time to do this. He needs time to get people to buy in to the real version of him, because they understand that folks haven't really been paying attention that much. But now, as we get closer and closer to 2024, folks are going to be paying more and more attention. It's going to take a lot to convince me that Ron DeSantis is going to be able to get that stench off of him. It's going to take a lot to convince me of that. And you're not going to convince the rest of the country to do things the Florida way. That's not going to happen either. But what I am saying is that if Ron can pull off this con job, that he is the more reasonable version. If that's the point, then that's going to be something to take a look at. If that's the point, that's what I want you to look at. Folks need to understand what you're seeing. Next, and if he continues this into next year, if the people buy into it, and I'm not convinced yet that they will, but if they do, DeSantis becomes a force. I think that what they told DeSantis is you can't be the second coming of Donald Trump. You need to be the second coming of Ronald Reagan. That's what I think that his coaches and his spin people told him. I think they told him, you need to stop trying to be the second coming of Trump. You need to be the second coming of Reagan. I come from a prosperous state. I come from a law and order state. I think that's what his coaches told him. I think that's what his trainers told him. I think that's what they said. I think they told him that. In the chat room, I want Joe C to call up. I think some of my mods are taking a crack cocaine break. I think some of my mods are taking a crack coke. Okay, well, they put the pipe down. Okay. I think E and D are out there smoking together, so why don't we go ahead and get, and I'm glad y'all put the pipes down so you can go ahead and start moderating. So D and E got they Biden pipes, and they was over there in the corner. What? You need to call it. All right, you didn't think it was sit-ups and push-ups that were causing that slender build on them, so go ahead and tell Joe he needs to go ahead and call up. Call from area code 347. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
What up, Jason? This is Lee from Brooklyn.
Okay, Lee from Brooklyn. What's on your mind?
Man, Brother Jason, first I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that you do, keeping us informed out here, you know what I mean, keeping us loaded when we run into white supremacists in these streets. But what's going on right now, this whole stripping away black people rights, all that shit gotta end. Like, we equipping ourselves with knowledge, but at some point in time, we got to put our knowledge into action. We have a chance at this election. It may be only 13% of us in America, but if we can vote in a way where we can show them that we're not to be fucked with anymore, pardon my language, we get their attention.
Well, definitely having moving in one movement, I think that would get their attention.
And I'll land my plane there.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. That certainly would do that under the right circumstances. We told Joe C to call up, and Joe C doesn't want to call up now. All of a sudden, he's gone scarce. So I want you all to keep that in mind. That is a Ron DeSantis supporter. These white supremacists are never, them and their bootlicks and shills, these are not profiles in courage. They're not the smart people in the room. They can't stand by any of this stuff. That's never been their MO. Their MO is to show up and sit silliness. Their MO is to show up and sit silliness here. Let me get caller from area code 984. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, my name is Maurice Taylor. I'm from Durham, North Carolina.
Okay, Maurice from Durham. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is I see all these other groups getting protections, and we need to worry about protecting these black children. I've been seeing these videos about all these LGBT people twerking for children. I just let you know, anybody want to come up and twerk for my child, oh yeah, it's going to be on site. I'm laying hands, and it ain't going to be no peaceful hands. You know what I'm saying? We got to worry about protecting our black children and our black people first. That's all I got to say, black first.
B1, brother, thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 551. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, thank you. I like your broadcast, and it's very helpful.
What
and
is your name?
Jacqueline Agers.
And where are you
I'm
calling from, Jacqueline?
Norwich, Connecticut.
Okay, Jacqueline
Okay,
from
now
Norwich.
I
And what's on your
appreciate
mind?
Okay. All right. The LGBTQ, it is totally wrong. And not just that, you had, I don't know, from some crazy state, it wasn't New York, because I am a New Yorker. He was dancing with his tighty whitey in the street. And who you got yucking and looking it up is white kids. You don't see nobody black there. I would definitely keep my kids away from that mess. The man was insane. Now, he need to be, as far as I'm concerned, arrested for nudity. Come on, we don't do that.
Well, he didn't just need to be arrested. The parents needed to be arrested, too, for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. You got to have laws. What you need to do is expand the pedophile laws. Now, when Bill O'Reilly was on television, he wanted to expand those things because he thought they were going to go after black folk. But if you really want to, then you expand the pedophile laws. When you do stuff like that, yeah, that's pedophiles, what that is. Thank you very much for giving us a call today. Let me get caller from area code 626. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, what's going on? This is Black. This is CVR calling over from, well, right now I'm in Vegas, but, you know, representing Los Angeles.
All right, what's on your mind?
Tonight, I just wanted to get in and just, like, you know, really talk about how, yeah, there is no protections for anybody that's actually Afrocentric. I've seen it, you know what I mean? It's messed up. I don't understand, you know what I mean? This 4th of July is coming up. And right now, I currently do labor work, you know what I'm saying? And I'm stuck right now here in the West Coast, and I don't want to be anywhere in the West Coast right now. I haven't been here for 6 years, but when I was 20, a cop tried to kill me, or just try to horseplay with me, basically, and try to run me off of my skateboard with his off-duty car. So I'll throw an Arizona T at his car. That didn't do any damage to his car, but then they hit me with a misdemeanor charge. So I had to come back 7 years later now. I'm 27, here in the West Coast, trying to get this thing resolved. And I'm stuck out in the streets. I'm messed up. You know what I'm saying? There's no protections. You could even just go and just say, like, yo, you guilty, and they won't even let you put in a guilty plea. That's a miscarriage of justice. They won't even let you put in a guilty plea. I want to head back down south, get this money, things of that nature. People will look out for you. Over here, they won't look out for you in the West if you're Afrocentric. I say boycott Latin businesses. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really bad, man. Like, it's really bad. It's really bad. I don't understand how anyone could even want to, like, stay up in the States. You know what I mean? I'm trying to stack up my bread to get out the States.
Like I said, you only have a few pockets in California. I've always said that. California, you got a few pockets, you know, in the Bay, in Oakland, South Central Los Angeles. You got pockets, but because of the malfeasance of the political and social, quote-unquote, leadership of the last half of a century, there's a reason why the black population has done nothing but go down. The Latino population has gone up. The Asian population has gone up. The black population has gone nothing but down. So between abortion and gentrification and ethnic cleansing, that's what's going on out there. So like I say, if you're not in one of those pockets out there where you can actually move like you need to move, California is just a place that's engineered and calibrated to remove you. So you may be on the right track there. To remove you,
yes.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. You may be on the right track there. Like I say, you don't have a protective apparatus in that regard. You don't have a protective apparatus. So if you're not in one of those pockets, the only thing I can do is tell you to get in one of them pockets out there. But you can't just be hanging out. You can't just be hanging out unless you already got standing, got footing, and got resources. You can't just be hanging out. You can't. Where you at, Roland? We'll be waiting to hear from you, I guess, or maybe not. Stranger things have occurred. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the haven of intelligent black thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go and check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us here on tonight's program. Thank you to everyone who has contributed on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future and the future is uncompromising.